The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent. This program is intended for educational purposes.
You're listening to
आप सुन रहे हैं
तुम सुनो था
നിങ്ങൾ കേൾക്കുന്നത്
ನೀವು ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ
Radio Azim Premji University.
The inflection point is the 90s.
India have won this.
भारत ने न्यूजीलैंड को 6 विकेट से हराया।
Navjot Singh Sidhu, Sachin Tendulkar. The previous one all the way. There's no doubt about it.
जी कसून तयारी आणि केवढा टेन्शन
India is on the move again. We shall make the future.
Tell you the Indians have come alive here in the West.
Suddenly you find the game having such a huge demand that from a position where Doordarshan would go say, can you please show this match? You now had people saying, can we host your match? Can we telecast your match? The money started coming from there. So what it meant was that a player who was receiving, say, 1,000 rupees for a test match started getting a couple of lakhs. Today they get 10 lakhs a match. A World Cup where the winner was getting 6,000 pounds in 2019 was getting about 4 million pounds. Similarly, today an IPL is valued at 48,000 crores. India is among the top 3. 38% of all global earnings are earmarked for BCCI. So the whole thing changed. Today, for example, a test cricketer earns 10 lakhs to play a test match. But even the 10 lakhs is a small amount. He has an annual contract that protects him. And we all know that cricketers make probably 8 times what they make from test match fees through endorsements.
Push the boundaries to Chittagong at one end and Cox's Bazar at the other, and there'll still not be enough.
Well caught with Giri and Raghu.
Brilliantly caught. Absolutely magnificently caught.
Episode 5 Late Cut.
Somehow the 90s was not an interesting period for us. If I were to think about it, the Indian cricket team was quite boring, although Sachin had started to emerge as the world's best batsman. But the team overall was such that we would win at home and have no hope of winning abroad in tests. In the limited overs teams, we would flatter to deceive. We had a decent team, but we would flatter to deceive. And Sharjah was like a Waterloo for us.
Still plenty waiting to get in here into the Sharjah Stadium. And a lot of
In fact,
cars
somehow
piling
memories
up
of Sharjah are not
outside the
edifying. That was the time when Abdul Rahman Bukhatir and Asif Iqbal combined to try and make Sharjah a key center for world cricket. But pardon me if I somehow felt there was a lot of sleaze. And there was some kind of unholy nexus perhaps between the organizers, the underworld, the film stars and the cricketers in some kind of unholy mix.
क्रिकेट की दुनिया से सबसे बड़ी खबर है, टीम इंडिया के ड्रेसिंग रूम में दाऊद इब्राहिम आता था और इस बात का खुलासा किया है खुद टीम इंडिया के पूर्व कप्तान दिलीप वेंगसरकर ने.
So one was never ever sure, and when you look back and think of all the match fixing things that happened towards the end of the century, towards the end of just before 2000.
Sharjah is something someone needs to investigate very seriously because there is clearly incredible temptation to mess around with the results, with the games, to lure players. I mean, it all exists. I mean, it's that kind of a cauldron.
I don't think every game in Sharjah was fixed, but if, let's say, 2 or 3 important games are fixed, it makes a whole mockery of a tournament.
Actually, we were thoroughly disillusioned. There was not only money, but there were a lot of stars, our Bollywood stars, who made their presence felt in Sharjah. And people started seeing this connection between Bollywood cricket through a lot of fanfare, money, jewelry, everything else came into the sea. Giri, talking of Sharjah, do you remember? Both of us at Thiruvatiyur, the Carborundum Universal plant, watching that match at Sharjah. And we were at the technical manager's house in a game which had gone up and down. It had come down to the last over, Mehndad batting. And I remember clearly, last ball, they needed 3 runs to win, and everybody was, out in the boundary line, what was permitted. And Mehndad facing Chetan Sharma. And Chetan Sharma wanting to bowl a Yorker to try and, even 1 and 2 would be okay for India. 3 runs to win for Pakistan. And the Yorker turned out to be a juicy full toss.
And Pakistan have won. Unbelievable victory by Pakistan.
And as Mehndad whacked it over mid-wicket for 6, there was a groan. And in the room in which 6 or 7 of us were watching, dead silence. And then I roared saying, "What a shot! What a shot! Did you see that?" And all of you glaring at me, wanting to kill me. Wow. I'm a great admirer of Pakistan.
I know. I'm a great admirer of Pakistan, but I don't want...
Like very often, when he was not given the due, I felt, Tendulkar is the greatest batsman in the world. In between, for almost 1.5 years, Inzamam ul Haq was the greatest batsman, not Tendulkar.
For Raghu and me, the 90s was a period when, strangely, our interest in the game came down. Somehow we could not reconcile our free amateur spirit of cricket with the stranglehold of commercialization in cricket. We found it disgusting to see a dropped catch being discussed in the night on TV in a program called Match Ka Mujrim Kaun.
नमस्कार, स्वागत है आपका। आज हम बात कर रहे हैं मैच का मुजरिम कौन। जी हां, लगातार आलोचना हो रही है मैच का मुजरिम जो है कि युवराज सिंह है, लेकिन ऐसा उनके बचाव में भी तमाम...
In other words, a 20-year-old boy dropping a catch which he had no intention of dropping, being pilloried in front of 1 billion people on TV, saying match ka mujrim tum. Somewhere our disenchantment with the game happened then. Not later, even as the country went through the jingoistic roof, expecting India to win every match, came the scandal of match fixing.
वेंकसरकर ने जी न्यूज को बताया कि 1986 में शारजा के मैच के दौरान दाऊद ड्रेसिंग रूम के अंदर आया और खिलाड़ियों को पाकिस्तान को हराने के एवज में कार देने का ऑफर दिया।
Former Indian cricket captain Ajay Jadeja, accused of match fixing, faced the press on Saturday.
At no time in my career have I been involved in match fixing as defined in the CBI report.
Cronje was forced to admit that he'd taken up to $15,000 from a bookmaker. He called it money for jam.
In a press conference held at a 5-star hotel in New Delhi, Manoj Prabhakar finally came out with documentary evidence in the form of apparently clandestine recordings of informal chats with those in and around the match-fixing controversy. Earlier in the week, Prabhakar had claimed that it was Kapil Dev who had offered him 2.5 million rupees to perform below par in a 1994 Singer Cup tie against Pakistan in Colombo. Soon after, Kapil Dev lashed out at Prabhakar, calling him a coward and accusing him of making reckless allegations without any proof.
I don't know. Have ever you heard from anybody else? No, one person coming out and you're giving him front to page story? Be a tiger, don't be a mouse.
While controversy rages across the nation, cricket fans remain aghast at what is happening to their favorite game, and all remain worried at the dismal levels that the game of fair play has finally succumbed to.
I want to read an excerpt from our book, From Mumbai to Durban, India's Greatest Sis, where we devote a couple of paragraphs to this sordid saga in our cricket history. I don't know whether governance still learns its lessons from there or not, but vigilance is the price we have to pay. Eternal vigilance. So here is the excerpt. Finally, for us as fans and spectators, What ultimately remains etched in our memories as the 90s came to a close was the desecration of a sport that we venerated, that we loved from the age of 5 or 6. The scandal of match fixing exploded in our faces as the decade came to an end, with South African captain Hansie Cronje admitting that he had accepted bribes from Indian bookies. One saw the unraveling of sordid episodes of disreputable bookies and their henchmen trying to entice morally weak cricketers into corruption. The Indian players who were in the net of match-fixing investigation never accepted any hanky-panky. But the banning of Azharuddin, Ajay Jadeja and Ajay Sharma told its own tale. Sleaze had now besmirched the sport. Suspicion and cynicism corroded the pure pleasure of enjoying a sport. A run-out, a missed catch, a poor stroke, a no ball, a wide, or a juicy full toss. Each of these was no longer a natural error that invariably occurs in any game. If it was a feeling of betrayal for the spectator, it was even more so for the honest players. Here I must say that we have had talks with journalists and cricketers, and from it what we could gather was this. The dressing room atmosphere was vitiated. It is no secret that the honest players shunned those that they believed were not clean. Their revulsion was apparent. Rajan Bala in the book The Covers of Off wrote, was one of the reasons for Tendulkar quitting as captain the fact that he did not want anything to do with people who had brought discredit to the game. Faithful fans swore off the game. It was clear that they had been deeply hurt. Our frustration is not with the rampant commercialization, but with the lack of accompanying governance. With mega bucks and mega power involved in the sport, poor governance can only be catastrophic.
Coming up on the other side of the break.
I think the miracle happened in 2001.
We will travel all over India, listen to all kinds of people in many, many different languages. We will go to Pandharpur in Maharashtra, where we will hear from the Marathi Warkari poets like Namdev the tailor. We will travel north to Banaras and hear from Kabir the weaver, Raidas the cobbler. We will travel to Rajasthan. We will hear from Meera and other poets of that region. We will also go down south to Karnataka and we'll hear from the Kannada Vachanakaras, people like Devaradasimiya the weaver or Madara Chennaya the cobbler. These people constitute the Bhakti path or tradition.
Bhakti Republic with Amit Basole. Out now, only on Radio Azim Premji University.
You know, I said that Raghu and I switched off from cricket for a few years. And I said it was a combination of both the kind of cricket we were playing and what happened in cricket. We were only tigers at home and lambs abroad. When we went abroad, we knew we will not win. And we didn't like the captaincy of Azharuddin in those days, and bias plays a role. And we felt that a team that he leads abroad will never win. Okay? But on top of it came the match-fixing scandal and stuff like that. We were turned off. But who knew in a couple of years, our interest will be rekindled with triple their love and affection. Sometimes destiny plays a role. Imagine a 70-year-old man and a 60-year-old man suddenly finding the love for the game rekindled so much that we got together to discuss the game, write blogs, and end up with books. I think the miracle happened in 2001. Let me read out a piece from our book, From Mumbai to Durban, because I think that's the starting point of our second phase of our love affair. Shah Rukh Khan says, "Mohabbat ek hi baar hoti hai," and all that in the film Kuch Kuch Hota Hai. Hame ek hi cheez se do baar mohabbat ho gayi. Who could have imagined that Indian cricket's brightest period was about to begin after its darkest hour? Sometimes wisdom and intuition come together to create destiny. When Tendulkar gave up the captaincy, India's selectors chose Ganguly as the new skipper. I must break here to tell you that my mother considers Ganguly the greatest captain India has had for the period in which he became captain and did what he did. Back to the book. Passionate about playing for the country and doing whatever was required to forge a capable and competitive team, Ganguly had the good fortune of having the finest colleagues to help him. Tendulkar, Kumble, Dravid and Laxman were already among the best players in the world, but they now closed ranks with Ganguly and formed a formidable phalanx. Utterly incorruptible, team and country above all, they knew that destiny had given them the unique opportunity to help India go to the top. In these players, India also had the finest ambassadors of the game and the country. Thorough professionals who excelled in their sport, took pride in their performance, and were men of impeccable behavior. When we were researching for our book From Mumbai to Durban, India's Greatest Test, the last phase of the book was about India's greatest test matches since 2001, because we called it the fourth phase of the book. And at that time, we were talking to a number of people close to these people. Certainly the senior cricketers, but also journalists. R. Mohan, a very fine journalist, put it like this, and I'd like to narrate what he said. He said, Ganguly along with Wright was the most effective combination. Look at the results, he says. And he said, Ganguly was so effective because he was so open, backing whoever he thought was talented. If he thought a person was talented, he backed him. So he told Sehwag, you open. Sehwag said, मैंने कभी opening नहीं किया. He said, you are the opener and you will open for the next 10 test matches.
Virendra Sehwag comes out to join Sachin Tendulkar. Nice to see that, a bit of a smile there. But Sehwag, an explosive player in the one-day game, completely untested in the test match environment so far. It's his debut.
He goes to Yuvraj and says, you will bat. And he backs Yuvraj.
Yuvraj goes big. And he'll get 6.
Harbhajan was not in the scenario when Australia came to play in 2001. Wright was a new coach and Ganguly tells Wright that, look, we should back Harbhajan.
And up goes the finger. 8 in this innings for Harbhajan, 15 in the match. He's been the star performer for India in the series.
Second best match figures in the history.
So Ganguly's USP was India at any cost. India must win. Of course, he had his ego and stuff like that. No, who doesn't have? He will have all the foibles of any good human being. But as far as his cricketing captaincy was considered, his main USP was he spotted talent, backed it, and had the spine to resist opposition to such things.
And the passion of the Bengali, which is unmatched.
Ganguly, he made India a tougher side.
As a captain, he was brilliant at reading opposition players. He knew how to get under their skin.
Cricket is a game at this level, it's 70% played in the mind.
He was opinionated. He was passionate. He was not particularly democratic. But the most important thing was he was the least parochial of them all. He was a throwback to the Pataudi days in terms of being non-parochial. It didn't matter whether it was Venkatesh Prasad or Harbhajan or whatever.
Or Dhoni.
I remember Mohan telling us he was even better than Pataudi in that respect of being non-parochial. That's high praise indeed, isn't it? Amma was right.
But by the time he made his test debut, that was his second phase. He was wanting to prove everyone wrong by, really showing them what he can do with the bat. And he was an extraordinarily talented man as a batsman. And don't forget, India had no left-handers. Before him, there was Nari Contractor was the previous one who had played for a length of time. Before that, we hardly had anyone. Ganguly was the first big left-hand batsman who was sustained and had a career in India. Calmly shone like a torch and went away. Vadekar, for all the hype, he did well as a captain, but his career figures are dismal. He was number 3 for 10 years and he averaged barely 30. He averaged 29 or 30. So Ganguly made the huge difference as the left-hander in the top 5.
And that Calcutta test.
India versus Australia, take 2, and the venue switched to the wonderful Eden Gardens in Calcutta. It's much warmer here than in Mumbai.
If that Calcutta test had not happened, Indian cricket would not be where it is today. Sometimes one event can forge destiny.
Steve Waugh won the toss again, and this time there was no doubt he would bat first. The openers, especially
So I don't think we are wrong if we place so much emphasis on a particular test match like the Calcutta test that we won. From nowhere we won, okay?
Australia finally all out for 4-4-5 and captain Steve Waugh with another Test 100, while Jason Gillespie's 46 was a timely knock. Top bowling performance came from Harbhajan Singh, the first Indian bowler to take a hat-trick in a Test match. He finished with 7 for 123.
We lost the first test.
A fighting 59 from VVS Laxman, but another all-round disappointing batting display. Several of the top order got a start but couldn't take it on. India were then asked to follow on 274 runs adrift.
We were following on in the second test when the turnaround happened.
And surely now Ganguly's got to call him in. Yes, that's it. At last they've decided that they've had enough.
India 657 for 7, one of the most impressive scorecards you're ever likely to see. VVS Laxman with India's highest individual test score of 281 and India's lead 383.
He's patted that. Oh, he's given him! He's given him! Umpire Bansal's given him! That's the end of the test match. India have won! India have won in dramatic style. The whole of
I think we forget the importance of analytics. When Harbhajan came into the team, you remember Ganguly and Wright brought them, there was nothing like analytics. So, Wright knew that an off-spinner must pitch a ball outside the off-stump in an area so that when it turns and bounces and lands near the wicket, it must hit the top of off-stump. That's the classic definition of a good off-spinner. So, Kumble did not play that series. He'd had a rotator cuff surgery. So, Kumble arm in sling, Ganguly new captain, Wright new coach, Harbhajan brand new bowler. They drew us 10 centimeters by 20 centimeters, a rectangle, chalk on a pitch, and they asked Harbhajan to bowl into it. And they found that Harbhajan was not only bowling into that box, he had a beautiful spring to it, and the bounce and loop he got on it as it pitched and hit the off stump, they knew that they'd got a winner. That was, according to me, funnily enough, the start of analytics. Venkatesh Prasad, while talking to us again when we were researching for a book, told us that in his time, analytics meant taking a paper from his diary and writing down fielding positions for various batsmen on various pages and then writing optional fielding positions in case plan A did not happen. So he would carry 4 or 5 papers in his pocket with field placing option 1, 2, 3, 4 for batsmen and option B1, B2, B3, B4 for batsmen. That was analytics. From there, there has been an incredible change. Money is important. Indian board was getting richer. We could afford analytics. Indians by nature also seem to be much naturally geared towards analytics. And in fact, a good friend of ours called Ramkrishnan of Sports Mechanics was the guy who first met Wright and gave a presentation. Wright very carefully introduced the concept to Dravid and a couple of others who were inclined towards analytics.
And Ramki was the first guy who, what were those cameras called first? Camcorders, which came in the mid-90s or something like that. He's the first guy who went to a coaching stint and started filming bowlers. And they had one guy who they thought was a chucker. The coaches were dismissing him as, no, he's got a suspect action. Srishant, the Kerala bowler. And Ramki filmed him and said, he's okay, just see this. And the coach saw and he is the guy who was able to film and then, show it back in so many frames. They thought another off-spinner was a great prospect and his filming him showed them that he has a suspect action. Srishant was the bowler he cleared, correct. So Ramki was one of the first people to use digital, filming and coaches, where is your back lift going? How are you coming to meet the ball? Everything was filmed. And from then on, analytics took over.
An interesting story of the early days of that analytics is that Ganguly got VHS tapes of Australian batsmen before they went on the 2003-4 tour of Australia and spent hours with Ramki. You're talking Ganguly, the captain, you think is very serious. Took hours and hours of VHS tapes from Ramki of Australian batsmen, studied it and prepared themselves for the tour of 2003-2004, where we did so well. Analytics progressed. Today on TV, you have analytics which tells how many times a player blinked before bowling and how many times a batsman winked before he batted and so on. You've taken analytics to the extreme because today, 75% of analytics is for the viewer. 25% is for the player. I'm exaggerating it only to tell you that very often the analytics that you see are analytics to attract TV audiences. So the beehive and this and that and pitch map and so on and so forth, a lot of it is for us so that it makes the visual spectacular. Cricketers, the analytics is very important. And India's coach, Kirsten and Wright, we both personally feel used it optimally. Just as India has been fortunate with a beautiful continuum of coaches from 2000 to now, except for that short period with Greg Chappell, I think we've been very fortunate with our captains. Credit to our selectors too for selecting so sensibly. Following Ganguly was Dravid. Fine captain, a bit unfortunate that he lost the World Cup in 2007, otherwise a very good captain. You had Kumble as a captain, memorable, short memorable period. There's no reason why Kumble should not have become captain much earlier. In fact, many contemporaries of his teammates have said that Kumble was perhaps one of the best captains they played under.
Cricket has had this crazy habit of thinking the captain must be a batsman. That kind of prejudice bias is still there.
But Kumble was a very short period. He was already 37 when he became captain and retired when he was 38, 39. So he could have become captain many years ago. Anyway, so Kumble, good captain. And then you followed it with Dhoni. And Dhoni's period was the time when India won everything. They won the World Cup T20.
India T20 champions. MS Dhoni got it right in the end.
They won the 50-over World Cup.
Dhoni finishes off in style. A magnificent strike into the crowd. India lift the World Cup after 28 years.
India became number one in Test cricket for the first time during Dhoni's reign. India won the Champions Trophy in 2013. So India did a lot. But the thing is that when Dhoni was leading a Test team that was on its last legs. By the time Dhoni was leading the Indian cricket team, people like Tendulkar and Lakshman and others and Zahir Khan and Harbhajan were fading. 2014, a brilliant transition to Kohli. I know Kohli has huge fan following, but Kohli also has a few detractors. And some people, I must include Raghu there, feel very irritated by his on-field aggression and by his whimsical selections. So, and they have a point, because how could you drop Ashwin and pick a player like Karan Sharma as a bowler in your team? So that detractions them. The fact is that during his time, India won a tremendous amount in Test cricket, work ethic, a whole lot of things. So I think we've been extremely fortunate that from the time of Ganguly through Dravid, Kumble, Dhoni, Kohli and now Rohit Sharma, you have an excellent captaincy record. Why? Even Rahane, in the short time that he captained, was absolutely brilliant. I think if you ask me today, if Rohit were not fit for a captaincy, somebody like a Rahane, somebody like an Ashwin will make a fist of the job. I think that is to do with the kind of culture that I told you has irreversibly been forged in the dressing room. Somehow, I think players get together and they know it's important to play for the country, play for the team and win. To a large extent, IPL also helps. Now, we know the downsides of IPL. Everybody is, it can be a flogging horse for people, but I think you should look at the plus sides of IPL. I think players realize team first in IPL. because now they have recognized that 20 of 7 is more important than 30 of 21. Team first comes in. A young guy like Sai Sudarshan has no regrets getting out at 96 because he was trying for a 6 so that his team could get to a bigger total. I think these are plus points from the way you play IPL that feed into the way you play for your country also. Raghu and I are the children of the 50s and 60s. I remember in the 60s when I would go to see a movie in the theatre, there was that newsreel.
मुंबई का ब्रेबोर्न स्टेडियम मौका है भारत और वेस्ट इंडीज के बीच पहला
And in the newsreel would be a 1-minute clip of India's latest test match. And that for us was the only visual of a game.
जीता और बल्लेबाजी का फैसला किया.
The game has changed, the world has changed. Sometimes I feel that people like Raghu and I should just flow with the times, embrace it, enjoy it. Because honestly, while the commerce may gnaw at you, the fact is that the cricketers of today are playing a superb brand of cricket. To be honest, I can always wallow in nostalgia and say, oh, look at the way Sardesai played or look at the way Prasanna bowled. But I bet that the level of fielding, the level of innovation and batting, and the level of thinking and analysis that goes into planning every ball is incredible. We both respect cricket and love cricket so much that we've always been alive to the way the game has progressed. The skill sets have improved match upon match, year upon year, decade upon decade to unimaginable levels. Why, even last week when Raghu and I were watching India-Australia World Cup match at Chennai, we watched the cricket in some wonderment and said, look at the Indian fielding, it's tremendous.
It was almost, there were no mistakes at all over 50 overs of cricket. Error-free fielding.
And I say that only to explain how every facet of the game has improved. In fact, I am looking forward to more and more of such thrilling cricket in the years to come.
I was a little skeptical about the limited overs cricket when it happened, when it started. And I certainly was quite shocked when T20 brought in some of the changes that it has. But as Giri has said, over the last few years, I've certainly learned to appreciate some of the unbelievable skills that have come into this game. And the nice thing is, some of it has come into red ball cricket too. And as Giri has said, there are so many things to enjoy that it does seem a bit silly to wallow in the past and think the golden age has gone and think of Hobbs and Hutton and the stylists of the old. Well, that was cricket of those times. And cricket of these times continue to be interesting. And I'm sure I'm going to devote almost all my time to watching cricket, analyzing cricket, writing about cricket, basically enjoying the game to the fullest. That's going to be my major preoccupation for the rest of my life. And it's been such a pleasure to talk about what we have got from this game of cricket. Right from the time when I started watching it in the early 50s. The game has changed, but we've enjoyed not only watching it, but reading so extensively about it. And we have mentioned it, but you must realize that in those early years, it was all radio commentary. There was no TV. So we didn't watch. Most of the wonderful memories we have of cricket is all that we've read and we've heard from absolutely lovely people who could articulate what was going there on the field in such a nice fashion. Giri?
If you played the game but not well enough to progress further in the game, your pleasure in watching the game does not lessen. Somewhere along the way, there's a lesson in life for us that you need not achieve greatness or even mediocrity in that game and still love that. Sometimes one-sided love is fantastic.
And it's been an absolute pleasure to bring to all of you Well Caught. So this is Raghu signing off.
And I'm Giri signing off.
Make sure you check out the show notes where we share the show resources and acknowledgements. And don't forget to subscribe or like our channel for future episodes.
You're listening to
आप सुन रहे हैं तो इन सुनो था
निंगला केल्कुन्नदा
ನೀವು ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ ರೇಡಿಯೋ
Radio Azim Premji University